Parent and Family Programs. These Lunch and Learn webinars are a resource for Cal Poly parents and supporters featuring campus and community experts. My name is Kanani Makikau. I am the Assistant Director for Parent and Family Programs, and I will be your host today. Also joining me is Lead Coordinator Stanley Learn, the Parent Advisory Council Chair Susan Wise, and Vice Chair Markham Puros. Also, we have with us our Lead Communication Strategist, Ashley Hussey. I just want to do some housekeeping items first. The QA function is enabled, and you can find that button located at the bottom of your screen. You are encouraged to type questions during the presentation using that QA button, which we will get to after the presentation is over, okay? So just go ahead and put your questions right in there, and we will try and get to as many as we can. Additionally, this webinar will be recorded today and put on the Parent and Family Programs website. I really recommend looking at the many resource webinars that we have done in the past because there is a lot of helpful information there. Today, the Parent and Family Programs team and the Parent Advisory Council are excited to have our valued colleague and director of the Mustang Success Center, Shannon Stephens, as our guest presenter. Shannon has been working at Cal Poly since 2004 and with the Mustang Success Center since it opened in 2013. He has been in the academic advising profession since 2000 and enjoys providing an environment where students feel welcome and comfortable to ask questions. Shannon says Cal Poly is a wonderful place to be and enjoys the slow lifestyle. So with that, Shannon, you have the floor.
Thanks, Kanani and Stanley and Ashley and Susan and Markham. Thanks for having me today. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and kind of share our services with you all so that hopefully, it helps your students down the road at some point. So, so I just wanted to share a little bit about myself and then just go through a few slides. I don't have a long presentation for you, but hopefully there's a number of questions that people have, and I can answer those questions for you and just kind of talk through this. So once again, my name is Shannon Stephens. I am the director of the Mustang Success Center. I'm also a proud graduate of Cal Poly. I graduated in 1996. Came here in 1991 and played baseball here for the Mustangs, and then was fortunate to go on and have a professional career. I played for the Florida Marlins for a number of years in their minor league system. Now they're called the Miami Marlins, but when I was with them, they were the Florida Marlins. After my professional career ended, I thought my easiest transition was to coaching, and I started coaching at a Division II school, actually a Cal State school in Southern California, and I started coaching down there. And as we were going along, I kind of, I noticed that some of the student athletes, we didn't have an academic advising program for our student athletes at our school. And so I joined an organization called the N4A, which is the National Athletic Academic Advisors Association. Got teamed up. I got into like a mentor-mentee program. And my mentor, who was from Utah State, kind of helped me sort of, create an advising program for our institution. And that's how I got into academic advising. And then I went on to UCLA from there and focused just on advising. I got out of the coaching side of things, started advising, and then I ended up here at Cal Poly in 2004, like Kanani had mentioned, and I am super happy to be back here. And I also like to think of academic advising. I think sometimes academic advising, people think of it as like, oh, what classes do I take? And for us in the advising area, we like to think of ourselves, we do help students with that aspect of it, but we find that to be very transactional with the student. But we'd like to talk to them about their goals, their career goals, things like that. And hopefully, it's more of a developmental conversation, and we help them navigate, a system that is not always sort of user-friendly. And when I say a system, I'm talking about the university itself. We have to help them navigate, policies, procedures, sometimes the hidden curriculum, if you will, like how do you get into a class if it's full, things like that. And those are the things that we're really proud to help students with as we go along. As far as the Mustang Success Center goes, it was created in 2013, and it sort of came out of this idea of having academic advising be accessible to students. So that is kind of where it started from. And I was asked to be the inaugural director of this center I came over from the athletics department, and I have been here since, and I enjoyed my time here with the Mustang Success Center, and some of the things that we have been able to accomplish that I'll share with you during this session. So the goals for the webinar here, hopefully you all get to learn a little bit about the Mustang Success Center. And for those of you that were, part of Slow Days, if your students came here, I did present at a few of those parent sessions that were there. Hopefully you enjoyed that presentation. Some of this is a little bit more of that. But a little less formal. So I want to just make sure that you know kind of what our services are and how we can help your students and you as parents and supporters, how we support the students, and then some of our learning outcomes. And what we're hoping for through those learning outcomes is that as we meet with students, those learning outcomes will help them sort of throughout their academic career here at Cal Poly. So the Mustang Success Center has become over the years, and what we are now is we are a first year, first time academic advising center. So we work with first year students who are first time in college. Transfer students, they go right to their colleges, and the continuing students, we have a handoff that we do with first time students, and we hand them off to their college advising centers. We don't stop any students from going right to their college advising centers, but at the same time, we are an accessible unit. We're based on accessibility. Some of the colleges, you'd have to have an appointment to get in to see them. That is not how we operate. We operate basically on a drop-in, on-demand service, and that's how we do it. We're open from 10 a.m. To 5 p.m. each day. From 10 to 4, you can come in. Students can come in person. From 10 to 5, we're also running virtual advising at the same time that we're doing in-person advising. Okay. So just to talk a little bit about the services, that accessibility, since I've been the director, that will always be at the heart of what we do, is making our services accessible to students when they need it. I know when I was a student, and I'll tell you, I wasn't the greatest student when I first got to Cal Poly, but if I had a question, I wanted to ask somebody, but if it took 2 weeks to get in to see somebody, I generally wasn't going to be going back after 2 weeks. So many of your students are probably the same way. They walk through the hallway and they're, oh, I have a question. And that's what we sort of capitalize on, is like, at that point, when you have that question, just come on in, and we are happy to meet with you via Zoom. You can come in person, however you want to do it, and we can answer that question and kind of get you on your way. All right. Like I said, we do that virtually and in person. Just one of the things that I do with my staff too is I'm always telling them, like, we've got to think outside the box, like we can't be afraid to fail. And I tell my staff this all the time because I want them to be innovative in our services. And so this whole Zoom thing, just a short little story, back in 2018, I think, is when, Zoom wasn't very well known at that time, but it was coming into existence. And we had a contract that we could use Zoom here at Cal Poly. And I'm not the most technologically savvy person, but I started learning about it. I'm like, hey, this is probably a good thing. Like, we should learn how to use this. So I gathered a few of my staff members, and we started meeting with our IT department, and we started talking about what are the capabilities of Zoom and those kind of things. And we got intrigued by it. So we started using it in the fall of 2019, and we were using it on break. So when students would go away for a holiday break or the winter break, the spring break, they go away, and we were using it with students who were studying abroad. And we weren't getting a lot of hits on it at first. And we went down and we did a presentation down in San Diego for our Cal State colleagues. And we Zoomed back to Cal Poly. We had an advisor on the line that we were talking to, and it went really, really well. And then after we got done with that presentation, we got some questions from some of the advisors. And then all of a sudden, when COVID hit, like, Zoom just blew up. And we were already using break rooms. We were queuing students up in Zoom. We had a lot of knowledge with Zoom, and so many of my staff actually started training other Cal State advising units and people on campus on how to use Zoom, because we had been using it for about a year before the pandemic hit. And so we were super proud of that. And it was just one of the things I think that we try to do on an ongoing basis in our office is be innovative and think of new ways to do things. Some of the workshops we do change of major workshops. There's a lot of rumors out there that you can't change your major at Cal Poly. And while it can be challenging for certain majors, I would say almost all of our majors, there are a few that are closed because they don't have enough faculty to teach the number of students that are in that major. But by and large, students can change their major at Cal Poly. It is a process that they go through of inquiring to a new major, learning what the requirements are to change. Each major will have what they call indicator courses. Those courses indicate success in the major. They will generally create a contract for the student at this point that says, hey, you need to take these 3 classes, get these grades, and if you do it, you can change majors. That becomes the contract, and if students fulfill the contract, then they are in the new major. Okay, that is by and large how it works, and sort of the more impacted a major is, the more students it has in it compared to the number of faculty they have, then many times the GPA will go up a little bit in that major. I think the highest GPA we have right now when students have to change is in psychology. Is probably one of the highest ones, and then I think business is after that. But most of the other ones hover around 2.8, 3.0, something like that. So if you do have students that are starting to question their current major and what they can do, please have them come see us, and we're happy to talk to them about how that process can happen for them. Or if you have questions about it, I'm happy to speak to any of you about it as well. We do other workshops as well, like we do registration workshops, like how to use the tools when students are getting ready to register for classes as the quarter system moves forward. We do some other workshops like how to communicate with instructors. We talk to students a lot about some more formal language when they're addressing faculty versus when they address their friends and in their Google accounts and things like that. The other thing we try to talk with students about as well is keeping their Cal Poly email address. That is the official form of communication at Cal Poly right now. There's some talk about moving to text, but right now it's the email. And if students have their Cal Poly email address, I tell them hey, let your business items go to Cal Poly and your personal items go to your Google or your Yahoo or wherever that might be. But when they're having things forwarded to a different account, sometimes those things will not go through. We try to talk to students about that as well. So if you have students that are having their emails forwarded to a Google account, I would encourage you to talk to them about keeping their calpoly.edu account and keeping their business items going to that account as they move forward throughout their academic career at Cal Poly. Okay. We do other workshops as well. We do some college knowledge stuff, some of the lingo we use around Cal Poly, things like that. These are just a couple examples of some of the things we do as we're trying to help students with that transition to Cal Poly through their first year. And that's really what our job is to help them navigate the university in a way that helps them be successful as they move through it. As far as supporting students, one of the big programs that we have is called our First Year Success Program. This is for students that are having a little bit of academic difficulty. This is a campus-wide program, and we've had everyone from the provost, who's the vice president of the university, to deans of colleges, to associate deans, to faculty members, to graduate students take part in this. And what we do is we meet with students in small groups who are having some academic challenges, and we talk to them about their ability to be successful here, talk to them about setting some realistic goals and what they need to do to continue to meet those goals. It's called an academic coaching program that we do, and it's been very successful with students in helping them either get their GPAs up or get off what we were currently calling academic probation. That term is probably going to be changed to academic warning relatively soon, but we want students to believe that they are capable of being successful at Cal Poly. Many of our students are, but we also have some that, sometimes that's academic, sometimes that's social, sometimes that's other things, and we want them to have confidence in themselves that they are capable of being successful here, even though that transition, really from high school or the community college, to Cal Poly can be a little bit challenging at times for our students. Okay. And we wanted them to reflect, on what happened in previous terms when they weren't doing as well as they wanted to, and being realistic about that. The expectations at the university are different, for many students that are coming from high school, and it takes a little while for that transition to take place. But we're here to support them through that as you go with resources and things like that. I think we talk about tutoring a lot, and for some students, they did really well in high school, and most of them did if they got into Cal Poly, and they didn't need a whole lot of help through high school. But like I said, that learning at the university level is much different, and so helping them understand that help-seeking behavior is okay, is really important to us, to them, and to the university. All right. We also have something here called the Degree Progress Report, which many of you may be aware of if you're working with your students. And that is what shows a student their degree progress. And so the Degree Progress Report includes their major, their support classes, the general education. If they've added a minor, that will be on their Degree Progress Report. And it really shows them what requirements they've satisfied and what requirements still need to be done. And this is inside of their portal in their student center. And we help students understand that Degree Progress Report, how to navigate it, and then how to strategize. Many of our students, and you are probably familiar with this too, are flow charts. Those are great. Students are really drawn to these flow charts. There's a color coordinated, really like an Excel file that sort of recommends what classes a student should take quarter by quarter. But no student has ever followed those things exactly as they're laid out. And sometimes that stresses students out, gives them some anxiety. They're wondering why the flowchart says they're supposed to be in this class, but they didn't get into that class through a block schedule. Those flowcharts are just recommendations. It is one way of how you could graduate in 4 years if you're in a 4-year program, or 5 years if you're in a 5-year program, architecture and landscape architecture. Those things are not written in stone, and sometimes students need some ideas on how to strategize that flow chart, and it goes right along with the degree progress report from there. Okay. And that strategy is really important because it gives students options, and sometimes they feel like they don't have options, but they do most of the time. There are times when it does get really kind of crunched up in some of these classes, and it can be challenging, but we are here to help them navigate that system as well as they move through it. Okay. These are our learning outcomes here. So for our first year students, we want them to be able to identify the appropriate advising center to utilize based on their year of enrollment at Cal Poly. They want to identify academic resources. I talked about some of those, like tutoring. There's also some other things called supplemental workshops, study sessions, faculty office hours, financial aid, all of those are resources to help a student be successful. Counseling services, if they're having any mental health issues, things like that. Students go through different things while they're here, and we want to make sure that we are able to connect them to appropriate resources. Identify which registration tools to utilize in each step of the enrollment process. That can cause a lot of anxiety for students around registering for classes, and sometimes they just don't know what all of their options are through that process. Most of the time, that is the issue, and we can help them navigate that, and then interpret academic policies that are related to their circumstance or their need. And that's one of those is change a major. We talked about that a little bit. That is a policy at Cal Poly that we reference quite a bit, because we do know that as a 17, 18-year-old student declaring your major when you're applying to Cal Poly, is not always what you're going to end up doing while you're here. And we also talk to students about that their major is not always tied to what their career may end up being. It doesn't have to be tied to it. I mean, if you're an engineer, then obviously that's a little bit more technical and more career oriented. But in the liberal arts or business or some of the college of science and math majors as well, you could branch out and do different things with those majors, and you're not limited by just what your sort of academic discipline is. Okay. Those are our learning outcomes, and what we're hoping is that all of the things that we try to provide to students, being accessible, connecting them to resources, and being here for when they need to have conversations with us. We hope that leads to success on their end. And when I say success, that doesn't always mean the same thing to every student, because students are struggling or have challenges with different things. And so what we're trying to do is take that student, that, you know, that whole person, and try to identify what we can do to help support them by listening to their stories and those types of things. Okay. One other thing I wanted to share with you is just, I think this accessibility model has been successful. And I'm not one to sort of pat myself on the back. That is not what I like to do. But at the same time, when we opened up in 2013, we got put in a building that had nobody else in it other than us. There was a bunch of old furniture out in the hallway that we were supposed to be getting rid of, but no one would come by and pick it up. And we were kind of referred to as a haunted house. So that was not a good start for the Mustang Success Center as we opened in 2013. We documented all of our advising interactions that year, and I think we saw just over 1,000 students in a year. Now, granted, I had like 4 staff that were available at that time. We've grown, and I just want to show you, you know, we see about 25, we have about 25,000 advising interactions per year now with students. That is not including the workshops we do. That is just sort of virtual Zoom advising, in-person advising, phone calls that we have going back and forth with students. So we are a pretty high volume office, but at the same time, that is what we were asked to be able to provide, is this on-demand sort of advising services. We send out surveys periodically to students. It's really kind of a satisfaction survey. It's not really an assessment survey. We have a different assessment thing that we do in our office, but we do get a lot of comments back about, you know, just being accessible. And there are times that students have to wait a little longer. So during some of our registration times, you know, there's a little bit longer wait. If a student was to come in right now, we would see them in probably about 2-3 minutes. But during some of our registration times, that might take 30 minutes, maybe even up to an hour. But we do talk to students, and we let them know that it might be a little bit longer waiting time, but at the same time, we will get to them the same day. And with all the technology, a lot of them just watch some shows while they're in our waiting room, and then when we can get to them, they come in. And we don't get too many that are upset about the wait time, because we try to put that in the Zoom feature. As they enter, we'll say, hey, it's approximately about this much wait time as you came in. So we try to be communicative with the students as we go through this process. All right. That is all of the information I have to provide with you all. But if there are questions and things like that, I am happy to answer those questions. Those links that are there, success.calpoly.edu and advising.calpoly.edu, are really they have some robust information there as well. And then we've also provided all of the first-year students with a Canvas page inside of their portal that has been really helpful to students and supporters if they want to share that with you as well. Okay. And with that, I will stop my share and happy to answer any questions that are rolling in. I can't see any of those things, so hopefully there's a lot of them there. If not, then yeah.
I got you, Shannon. I've got you. Thanks so much
All right.
for all that information. That was great. That was great. Like the major theme for me was that the Mustang Success Center makes, you know, your staff is very available to help as a resource, and even for walk-ins. So that was really awesome. We do have some questions here. Some of them are technical, and I might not understand the question on my end, actually. So I'll just ask you, is the GPA cited to change major, just the GPA in the indicator course, or overall GPA?
Sometimes both, but really the indicator courses are the ones, like if students want to change a major, there's students who struggle maybe like in some of the sciences, and they're wanting to change to maybe something in the liberal arts. The change of major policy in place is not to penalize them for classes that they didn't do well in if they're moving to a new major. So the departments are able to do this. They make their own criteria, but most of the time they put more preference on the indicator courses than sort of overall GPA. There are a few of them that'll say like, hey, we want you to have a CUNE GPA of this, or get this GPA 2 quarters in a row while you're taking the indicator courses. So, so yeah, hopefully that answers that question.
Okay. Is there anywhere that students can get actual study skills, strategy help to help them adjust to the increased rigor of college?
Can you repeat that one, Kanami?
Yeah, I think this parent supporter is looking for resources when a student is trying to learn skills and strategy to get them adjusted to campus life.
Yeah, the study skills for sure. Yeah, and they can start with us. We have there's a library that we have available virtually, like on on campus to talk about some of those study strategies, but really kind of digging into, is that test taking, is that time management? But they can start with us, and we're happy to direct them to some of those resources that are available to them around them.
And I also know for Cal Poly Scholar students, they are required to take University 100, I think.
Correct, yeah. And a lot of my staff teaches those University 100 sections as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, great. Can a second-year student come to the Mustang Success Center too?
They can. However, we're trying to get them connected with their colleges as we move them forward. But we have had some instances where students are struggling to get in to see one of their college advisors or something like that, or they've made a connection with one of the advisors, in the Mustang Success Center. We want them to sort of meet with their college because we want them to also establish that connection with their college advising center. But in the end, a student could, if they come in through virtual advising, our student assistants are generally going to ask them if they're a first-year student. If they're not a first-year student, they're going to provide them the resources to connect with their college advising center. And I also say that each of the colleges have their own advising center, and they want that connection with students as well. What we have done is, through a first-year center, we answer a lot of the general questions that students have to help them be successful. And then the college advisors really dig into the curriculum when they get into like concentrations or specific classes, things like that. So I would encourage them to try to make that connection with their college advisor first though. Okay.
Great, that's good advice. Now, when students come in to talk to staff, it's an advising student sort of scenario here, and they might divulge things to an advisor, like they might be struggling, they might be having a difficult time with roommates and such. And I'm sure that happens sometimes for first-year students, and it's affecting them academically, which is why they might be coming in to see you and your team there. What happens if a student is really struggling like that? How do you help this student or show them a place where they can get some more help?
Yeah, so first, when you say sometimes, that happens a lot. So we have a lot of conversations with students around those type of life skills adjustment. And that's why I talked about navigating the institution, right? Because you are, possibly living with someone you didn't know before, and that can be challenging, or sometimes that goes well. We generally try our best to listen to students to identify exactly what's going on. What I have in my office is I have liaisons to almost every area on campus. So I have a liaison to housing. So if it is a housing issue, we have ongoing monthly meetings with housing. My liaison meets with them. And as these things come up, we run those by in those meetings that we have. And then my liaison to housing comes back to our staff meeting. We have staff meetings every Friday and shares that information with our staff so that we are all getting training at the same time. If there's some mental health issues that are sort of coming to the forefront, we are not experts in dealing with mental health, but we have a liaison to our counseling office, and so we work with an individual over in counseling that kind of shares with us how to address these things, where we stop and where we kind of hand off to others. And so I would say, for us, all of those transition issues we deal with students. And we may not be the expert in any of those things, but we are connected to the resources across campus who are the experts, and we can get students to those resources.
I can imagine you and your team are maybe the most connected to other departments on campus, because you have to know that information in order to assist students.
Yeah,
Yeah, I understand that.
yeah, absolutely.
This question asks, do students also access tutoring through the Mustang Success Center?
They don't access the tutoring through us, but we certainly can help them gain access. So our tutoring happens through our writing and learning center. However, there is a login, and you basically just create an account. And I just literally, before this meeting I had with you all, I just sat down with a student and helped them sign up for tutoring for ARCE 211, which is structures, which is a course that can be quite challenging for some of our students. But we sat down and we looked at the tutoring. I had them create an account, showed them how to sign up for it, and they're meeting with a tutor this evening at 5 o'clock. So yes, we can help them sign up for tutoring. The other thing I would say when it comes to tutoring is there are a number of resources there. There's like there's like a math hub that's kind of like a drop-in tutoring session, or you can meet with a math person one-on-one. And you can also meet with different people. So if a student doesn't have a great experience with a tutor on their first go around, I would encourage them to try another tutor, because there's generally, at least in math, I mean, I think we have 9 to 10, I mean, probably even more tutors in math. But in one of the, say in like ARCE 211, there's 2 different tutors for that course. So if a student doesn't have a great experience with the first tutor, I would have them try the other one. If that doesn't work, they can come back to us, or they can go to the Writing and Learning Center to talk about that. And the Writing and Learning Center does everything they can to accommodate students. They would try and hire another tutor and see if they can do that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a way parents can help look up registration to help their students find open classes?
Not without access to their portal. So when you're talking about open classes, that has to go through the portal through Schedule Builder. However, if you're wanting information about the registration process, we have a bunch of YouTube videos that are there. There's a bunch of stuff on Cal Poly websites around registration and how to utilize it. It can be a little confusing because our first year students generally get a full block schedule in the fall, and then moving from winter and spring, they leave that up to each department whether they're going to give students a full block schedule or a partial block schedule. So most of our engineers will get a full block schedule fall, winter, and spring, where students like in business or college of liberal arts, they're not going to get a full block schedule for winter and spring. They'll get a partial block schedule, and then students will need to register for the rest of their classes on their own. We do registration workshops in the residence halls and on campus. We've done a number of those already in preparation for this. Schedule Builder got released today, so it is available for spring quarter in the students portal. But searching open classes, parent supporters would not be able to do that without access to the students portal page. And our learning objectives are that students are able to utilize the appropriate resource. So helping them is fine, but I think letting your students sort of navigate that a lot on their own will help them, because when they move into their second year, they're going to have to register for all their classes on their own. And while there is some panic and anxiety around that, a lot of that has to do with students not understanding what their options are, and students will sometimes not come into the Mustang Success Center, and they'll get their academic advice from their roommate. We don't support a lot of that, but we do find that when students come in and we're able to talk to them about what their options are, it's a lot of that anxiety is released, because they think they're supposed to be in a certain class when really there are different options for them to do.
Right.
That was a long answer to that one, Connie.
The summary is, if that a parent really wants to look at open classes, they could only do that if their student gave them their login information for the portal.
Right.
And I agree with you, Shannon. Like here at Parent Family Programs, we say that we want to help you, a parent supporter, help your student help themselves. And I talk with parents, all day long, and this is a common thing. They would like to help their student, or their student is feeling some sort of way about registration or can't find what they need. And so the instinct is really to jump in there and help. So I do understand the question, and we do like to move our students towards more autonomy and registering on their own.
And just to add to that, I mean, this becomes a life skill, right? We all know that things aren't going to go our way all the time, right? Like I'd love to work from 10 to 2 every day. And a lot of students will come in, it's like, can you help me find classes from 10 to 2? And like, that is almost impossible, right? But down the road, there are times in our lives where things don't go our way, and we have to be resourceful and find ways to navigate around it to still get to the end goal.
Okay. I think we have time for about 2 more questions. 2 scarce. Okay, folks, for some of these questions, they are very college specific, and we are collecting these questions, and we would like to post on our website the answers to them after we can find them. But some of them are so technical, like for the School of Engineering, that we might not be able to answer those today. Okay? Okay. Shannon, if my student is on academic probation, are they automatically signed up for the supporting student program?
Yes.
If not, is this something I can suggest my student to sign up for?
That program happened. It is still ongoing, but yes, they were part of it. We indicated that it was mandatory. And so we had that program, gosh, what was it, July? So we did the main program on January 12th is when we ran our first year success program. And then the coaches are still in contact with those students as we go through it. So all of the students are required to go through it who were on academic probation. They were required to do that. And the student received multiple communications, and they should have got access to a Canvas page that they could follow along with as well. But yes, that was a requirement. And we've only had, I think there's only 15 students that didn't complete the requirement so far. So hopefully who's ever asking that question, your student is not one of those 15.
All right. That's a perfect segue into this last question here, Shannon. And I'm trying to summarize this one too. So this person is wondering, it sounds like their student might be on academic probation and they're concerned about it. And so what is the process, or I guess, what is the process of getting off of academic probation? And then what if it goes the wrong way and you go into academic suspension?
Yeah, so every student is given a full year. So no students will be disqualified in their first year, regardless of their GPA. So they have one full year, fall, winter, and spring, to be here, to accomplish that. Academic probation is pretty simple. It's based off a GPA of a 2.0, which is a C average. So if a student's GPA is below 2.0, that would be considered academic probation or academic warning. If their cumulative GPA is 2.0 or above, that's considered good academic standing. What we try to do though is we try to get students to around like 2.4, 2.5, because in the data that we run, a student who's about a 2.45, 2.5, they graduate at the same rate as a student who's a 3.9, believe it or not. And so we try to encourage students to get to that 2.4, 2.5 range as they go. And obviously, I mean, we're not just setting the bar at 2.4, 2.5, but if we're seeing students hovering around that 2.1, 2.2, we're trying to talk to them about like, hey, this is a marker we'd like you to get to at the end of your first year. So yeah, and then the process for that is if a student, struggles again after this quarter, they're part of our first year success program. We put a 2.0 on top of that. So students who are on probation 2 times in a row, we have a separate program for those students who are in their first year. And that is a pretty intensive one-on-one sort of conversation that we have with students and talk about what's going on. Most of the time, there are other things going on in a student's life besides just a struggle academically. It is mostly other things that are interfering with their ability to get their academics done, whether that's mental health issues or social, things or family issues that are going on. And like I said, we can talk to students about those things and get them to the right people that will hopefully kind of help support them through this. And at the end of the day, though, like we don't want students struggling, like, quarter by quarter. And while Cal Poly, most people find this to be a fabulous place to be, like this is not always the right place for every student. I mean, it is a rural place, and that is not always the best fit, for everybody. And so we also help students with that transition if they're wanting to go somewhere else, of like how they can prepare to do that. We want students to be successful, whether that's here or outside of Cal Poly.
Shannon, and thanks for being here today. I want to thank our presenter, Shannon Stephens, for taking the time to present for parents and supporters today. The Mustang Success Center contact information is going to be posted in the chat, and you also saw it on Shannon's last slide there. I also want to thank you, parents and supporters, for joining us today. The Lunch and Learn webinar series is created by the Parent Advisory Council for parents and supporters. And it's a great way to stay connected to campus and receive up-to-date information directly from campus experts like Shannon. Stanley has also put all the contact information for parent and family programs there in the chat. If you want to reach out to us, we'd be more than happy to talk to you. Please feel free to reach out to either of our departments with any questions in the future, and have a great day, folks.